I think that San Diego is often overlooked as like a place of like post 70s avant-garde
place. Just full stop. San Diego is often overlooked. End sentence. Like I know nothing. As someone not from California,
John
I know
Baldessari is from there and like went to school there and used to teach there. Marcuse used to teach at the UCSD along with other lefty Marxist Frankfurt School people. Great bands like the Locusts came out of there.
I didn't know the Locusts were from there. The Locusts are a great band.
Yeah, San Diego was cool until about 2008.
I feel like America was cool until about 2008.
Are you saying that America got uncool when we elected Obama?
Yeah, I guess I am. Yeah, actually, I don't know why that was the thing that made us uncool. Like, we'd have to unpack that more, but like, yeah, that was the last. Or we spent it all. Like, that was the last cool thing we had. Like, that used up.
We elected a black president, and then
who smoked fucking cigarettes in the White House, did cocaine. Like we and then that was it. That was it. We had nothing more in the tanks, and we haven't done a single cool thing since.
Yeah. Speaking of music criticism, always going down the drain as well.
Oh, Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year. Do you have plans for tomorrow?
Not really. Like, I'm gonna go to synagogue. May year 5785 be filled with life and light.
That's how old the Earth is?
That's just what year it is.
But like, how did that start?
How did our year start? Why is it 2025? I mean, I guess that's Jesus. So I don't know what I think. I could be wrong here, and people who really understand the Jewish calendar at me, I thought it's from when they just started counting. That's my understanding, and I don't know. So it seems as if 3000 Sunday, October 6th, 3761 BC is year 0 in the Jewish calendar, which in extraordinary Talmudic fashion starts 1 year prior to creation. That first year, it's called the year of the chaos moon.
That's very poetic. That feels like an Echo and the Bunnymen song or something. I guess they have the killer moon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Molad Tohu, which means the mean new moon of chaos or nothing.
Wow. Pretty sick. Who knew? Talmud getting super metal.
Oh, dude. Do you know where the Torah existed before creation?
Where is that?
In black fire on white fire. And so when you stare into another person's eyes, you can still see the primordial Talmud.
Welcome to another episode of Money for Nothing, the podcast about music and capitalism. I'm Saxon Baird.
And numerology.
And rabbinical debates. I'm with Sam Backer, as always. And we were not going to discuss the Talmud this time on the podcast, but we are talking about music criticism and the billionaire Spotify club. Sam, you recently sent me a text of some new additions to Billions Club, which is the Spotify Billions Club, which is music or songs rather that have recently hit over 1 billion plays. I see that it's being updated every day, including Tupac songs on there now, and also my favorite Santeria by Sublime. But
I thought you were gonna say my favorite song, "Beautiful Girls" by, I believe, convicted felon Sean Kingston.
Oh wow! Oh yes, that was actually added just 3 hours ago. This is interesting. So. You were like...
Hold on. Let me just make sure that he, in fact, is in jail. Yeah. Sean Kingston sentenced to 3.5 years of jail for like a fraud scheme with his mom.
Well, that just got added to... People were out there. They're holding vigil for Sean Kingston. Free Sean. Free Mr. Kingston. and his
Free Mr. Kingston.
But
and his mom probably too.
I've actually never looked at this Billionaires Club public playlist, and you were sending it. You actually said it like last week, so there was like some new additions that you were like what the fuck, including. Well, maybe I'll let you go for it, but yeah, like there was some like Chase Atlantic.
It's just weird. So yeah, we were like, I don't know. I was poking around and. I ran. I mean, I've seen this before, but it just clicked. I was looking at the 20 most recent songs,
which has since changed. But yeah, right.
Which has since changed. Yeah. So who knows what new songs will be added to it? But so yeah, this is a playlist kept by Spotify of the songs. Every time a song hits 1 billion plays on Spotify, which is like a good number of plays. That's like, with all due respects to our fallen colleagues at Penny Fractions. Like, if you get 1 billion plays on Spotify, that is actual money. It's not nothing. Even at that's real money. But it's also just like a fascinating collection of. I mean, I think the thing that really piqued my interest was. I flipped it open and I noticed that both Clint Eastwood by the Gorillaz and I Knew You Were Trouble by Taylor Swift just hit 1 billion plays. But also they're next to like songs from this year. It's such a like just going through it just offers you this incredible strata of what's happening in popular music, like both now and like in the continuing afterlives of some of these songs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you get like this, like you get like an Alex Warren song just hit 1 billion plays, like 2 spots after Natalie Imbruglia's Torn, which is a cover, by the way.
Really?
It's a cover by some random like Australian band. Anyways, yeah.
Good for everyone involved.
Yeah, right.
That's like how girls just want to have fun as a cover.
Right.
No, and so I feel like it feels to me in this like we've talked about this a lot, right? Like that one of the strange things about the streaming economy, about digital culture is the way it flattens time, right?
Yeah, completely.
And it flattens time in terms of what is now, right? Like acid bath, like bands that were like small cult bands back in the day are now festival headliners. Like, which is the important band in a genre is reshaped fundamentally. Like the fact that Duster is
classic,
is the biggest shoegaze band somehow, I think. Like, and it's not like I think there've been past processes of reconceptualization that occur as different generations take stock of the music of a specific era. Like the biggest rock band in the 70s was like probably Aerosmith.
Right.
But by the 90s, the most important one is Led Zeppelin. And in the 2000s, it's Fleetwood Mac. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
yeah, right.
All bands that were big in the 70s. But like, that's just an example. And I'm not sure if... but Aerosmith is no longer... stops being like a touchstone for like anyone by the year 2002. Anyone who's not actually in Velvet Revolver.
I actually, side note, I actually had like a funny discussion about Aerosmith with a bunch of people at the bar the other night, because some girl was proclaiming that she loved Aerosmith and her dad used to play Aerosmith all the time, and I was like, which album? And she was like, Pump, which is like their like weird 80s comeback one with like Love in an Elevator on it and stuff. I was like, that's
sure.
I was like, once again, time flattening. Like,
yeah, no, people love Aerosmith. I don't get it. I mean, they're good. It's just honestly, I think that Steven Tyler's not a great singer. I mean, he's a good vocalist, but like he's not like he doesn't the way he delivers blues double or triple or single entendres. The way he delivers single entendres, I find unconvincing. It's like go to the Bon Scott school of talking dirty on the mic, sir, and then come back to me in front of a best-selling rock band.
Or like have soul like Robert Plant. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah. Moving on. No, but so it's different than that, right? And one part of it is what we're saying is it's this ability for bands that usually are well respected, but often small, just like in this temporal shift, just bubble to the top, like algorithmically, rather than as a result of changing cultural tastes. Like I think some people, and I've read this online, like there is an argument for why Duster fits particularly well in the sonic landscape of the way people are engaging with music now. Or certainly like the fact that it turns out the most successful indie rock musician was Mac DeMarco by like such a long shot. Like of that whole scene of everyone, it was Mac. It was Mac by like, it turns out it was Mac by a landslide.
Right.
And some of that is like about how this music fits in, but some of it is like algorithmic. You know what I mean? It's not. It's about how things get heard and how things get experienced online in this very specific way. And so there's that we've talked about, but then there's also just like the mixed in with that on alongside and that would be one version, one story about temporality. I feel like digital music temporality online. But then there's this other story, which is the long tail hits, right? The fact that a big song's making money year after year, that they're still getting put in soundtracks, that they're still getting put in rockin' playlists. And so those songs keep making money, but also they still have like currency because the digital musical economy is kind of flat. So it like, just like, right? So they keep being current songs in a different way. Like they keep getting added to the new playlists. It's very, does that make sense?
So
like,
before I answer that, I would just like to say that Mac DeMarco is very soon approaching the Billions Club with Chambers of Reflection coming in at a 992,000. Is that how you say that? 992,000? Whatever.
992,000. Yeah.
Right. With My Kind of Woman coming in shortly after. Now, are you kind of suggesting like maybe like let's take like a band like Paramore, which can like kind of like fit into like a number of like different atemporal genres. If you're like creating like a playlist on Spotify, you could put it in the emo genre that's also has like an emo band from like the like early that also has a My Chemical Romance like track.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Are you kind of suggesting that like these kind of there's like these like certain songs and bands, like depending on various genres, they can kind of like slot in and out of like this sort of atemporal moment, and that's kind of what then allows them to be as popular as they are.
Yeah, that's part. I think that's true, and that's part of what I was saying. I guess I was also saying that if you think about like the classic definition of catalog sales, right? Mm-hmm. Right. That's originally it's like everything over 6 months or a year. It's like the idea that new releases sell the most because it's pop music, and that temporality was baked into the very idea of pop music from Tim Panelli on down. And then after that, like it slows to a trickle. And then you've got these albums like, you know, famously Dark Side of the Moon was on the Billboard Top 100 album charts for like a decade, right? Mm-hmm. Right? It never left because everyone just wanted to keep exploring that Dark Side of the Moon section. But I guess what I'm saying something kind of different, right? So there was always like there's the like rediscovery, like Duster, right? That didn't sell. Maybe that's catalog technically, but it's like a new discovery. It's functionally like a new old band. It's almost like a reissue. But then there's also the fact that there's a blurring of the lines between new songs and catalog, I feel like, and the promotional mechanisms maybe that's part of it. It's like the promotional mechanisms are more similar. If you think about radio stations, right? There was top 40, and that would be certain stations, and those would play new songs. And then there were greatest hits stations, at Golden Oldies or classic rock or whatever, and those would play old songs. And I guess there were some stations that would play more than one thing, right? Like K-Rock, when it existed in New York, would play like the latest White Stripes song, like the hardest little button to button, like White Stripes non-hits, but then also give
like
it away,
80s, like new wave track or whatever.
Yeah. Or like an alternative rock track, right? But like the point is that like they're all mushed completely together now. So if you go on your basic like interface of this or the recommendation algorithms, you might get a new song or a rediscovery song, or like one of these catalog songs, which means that just the ability, I think, of an older song to keep selling and then like to start interacting with the other music around it is different. And I feel like this list was so interesting because of the mixture of all of those things that was on it. That like,
yeah, and I think it's also like a characteristic of. I hate to use this term, but like the algorithm or whatever of Spotify. Because, for example, as I was going through this list as you were talking, I just went ahead and clicked what the Not Like Us by Kendrick radio is. Okay. So this is like when you click on it, it like creates like a radio playlist. It's not really radio, but it's a playlist for you. It's supposed to be based off of the song that you like and that you're listening to, right? And so like the first like 7 or 8 songs are like newer, like Playboi Carti, other Kendrick songs. Ironically, like the 4th song's One Dance by Drake. And then like
great song.
And then like number 7 is like It Was a Good Day by Ice Cube, which came out 40 years before this song came out. And then you get to number 10 and it's Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan. And then, like, you get to number 18. The 18th song is, like, a Charlie XCX song featuring Billie Eilish.
I mean, in fairness to the algorithm, the girl that Chappell is singing to is Not Like Us in that song.
Okay, all right. And then you get down, you get into, like, Michael Jackson. But the point being, I think it kind of illustrates your point here where, like, not only are you, like, getting this sort of atemporality happening, but you're also, even within, like, a specific song which you're trying to click on and hear other songs, you're getting stuff that's outside of the genre, different years, different styles. It's like all kind of, and it's just being like thrown together. That's kind of what you're suggesting?
Yeah, and those things then have an ability to like interact with each other in different ways than they used to.
And so then it kind of like it starts to break down like understandings of like genre, and then also like how you would say with like market music or like our listening habits, or like, oh, like I'm more of, or even like the ways we'll get to later about like certain like maybe ways of understanding music criticism, right?
So that's the thing I thought, right? Like I think that breaking down genre and all that is very true. But what I thought was so interesting was kind of reading through this list, and we're about to do that like very briefly, but like reading through this list, and my takeaway was just like how complicated it is to understand what's going on in popular music, given atemporal, given that so many of the like the load-bearing walls of our understanding like have been just utterly demolished by the digital music ecosystem. Like, so it's this funny thing where like there's almost no tracks here where I'm just utterly befuddled. That's what I thought. Clicking on the Billions playlist, I assumed that I would be like, I have no idea how these songs got here. Who is this? What is this weird like Finnish like GABA song? Like like this like Estonian trap masterpiece that has 1 billion plays. And instead, what you have, I think, is in a way that genres and genre-based charts and musical history kind of kept apart. And I don't know if this actually, people's music listening habits might still keep all this apart, but the Billions playlist is kind of a wonderful thing because of the fact that it's just so raw. It's such based on such raw quantification that it's just like, is it a billion plays? And then it shoves them all together. And you're like, oh, look at all the ways that you can get a truly large scale hit in this moment from so many directions. Okay. So enough of the like hooing and hawing. Saxon. Okay. Who do you, Saxon?
Well, actually, let me just hoo and haw a little bit first, for a second. So before we get into the list, well, because I think there are some caveats that we need to like put in here. Like first of all, you said hit, and like the definition of like a hit that's based around the platform of Spotify that is kind of self-perpetuating like we don't know how the algorithm works, but like I think there is a sort of like self-perpetuation of like however the algorithm works that's putting these on playlists, that's putting these on
that was true of radio as well, that's
like suggesting this in people's Discover Weekly, that then like pushes these songs. You know, it's not just like, I think we have to at least acknowledge that this isn't just like me going in searching for Day and Night by Kid Cudi. You know, like, I mean, there's probably a lot of that going on, but I mean, there's a lot of other things contributing to that.
Right. So that I think, I think that's 100% right. This is self-perpetuating, and certainly like I love this. One of my favorite things is watching Coldplay just use every single lever of music industry possibility to somehow maintain a hold on the charts. Dear listener, have you listened to a Coldplay record in the last 7 years? Because what they are producing is insane. Like it's not, by insane, it makes it sound like it's some sort of like over the top work of art, and it's not that. It's just it's just, you listen and you're like, what is this even mute? Like, what is this? This is just like a collection of sonic signifiers jumbled together over like third generation stadium EDM beats, like with an uplifting chorus, kind of. It's truly startling. And you're like, but it's still somehow, you've got the right number of like it's like, oh, it's featuring BTS, so it's gonna be put on BTS radio, and it's gonna be a hit.
Hey, right? No, totally. Yeah, that's what you mean by pulling all the levers.
Oh yeah, like every single, like they just got too much power to ever leave the spotlight.
Like friends who listen to this podcast, let me illustrate that their 2024 album Moon Music has a song that already is in the 9 digits of plays, featuring obvious collaborators of Coldplay. I mean, this is just such a seamless like collaboration. Burner Boy and Little Sims. Just who you think of when you think about collaborators of Coldplay.
Burna Boy. Yeah, exactly. Which means that Coldplay is on a Burna Boy radio.
Right. Yes, exactly. Anyways, okay, so get into the list. We can Okay. And by the way, also Coldplay has like their top 10 most played songs all are over 1 billion. They're Jesus Christ. Okay, anyways, continue.
Yeah, okay. So, number 1, 3005 by Childish Gambino. I remember the song from the radio. It's an okay song. Some of the rapping holds up okay. Some of the rapping does not. Shocked to find it on this list. Like, deeply shook to find that it like is on this list. But I guess this might be the most inexplicable one to me. Not because like I know Childish Gambino has like big songs, but like that just doesn't. Also, the production is both. That was the other thing about listening to these songs. Like, it's such a time capsule where I'm like, oh yeah, this like post Clams Casino big washed out synth production for a second, but the drums sound terrible. Okay. Someone to You by Banners, which is the worst song I've ever heard in my life. Like, I don't know. Did you listen to this one, Saxon?
No.
Once again, folks, you can tell who really cares about you, who's willing to put their eardrums in the line of fire for what I can only describe as science. I don't like this. That song was crazy. And Jackson, it's almost worth stopping the podcast to have you listen to it. Like, I don't know what genre of music this is. It's like
okay. Hold on. I'm gonna listen to it. Sorry. Oh, it's like commercial music almost. It's like something you would see like advertising, like some like pharmaceutical thing or like a new like rom-com or something. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. What is that? Really stomping. There's like stomping, and then there's like hard hitting like piano, but then there's like the weird like crescendo, like endless crescendo, like kind of like happening. Yeah.
But like a rom-com about
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like it's a little Christian, but it's not. It's really. I'm like, who are there? People like like, are there?
Is he real?
Like, yeah, no. It's really an inexplicable song. And this is one of the ones where it does feel like a one-hit wonder or a playlist where like this is a format thing. If you go, and again, clearly we're like looking very quickly, and using Spotify as a good metric, but he's got one song with 1 billion plays, and then the next biggest song is literally an order of magnitude less, with like 100,000 plays, and then everything else is less than that. It's like 50,000.
Also, like where, anyways, whatever. Yeah, like
No, sorry, 50 million. Excuse me. And there were a couple jumping around. There were a couple like this. Impossible by James Arthur. Snowfall by One Heart.
Yeah, One Heart actually has like, it's weird because I feel like One Heart has like a little bit of like like cool kid cred or something. Like I don't know. Like I've heard them on like NTS a couple times, and I think they even had like a guest spot on NTS. It's like he's like a 19-year-old like Russian who makes what's called dark ambient, apparently, I guess, and like he started when he was 11. He's like 19 now. Yeah, that's. But I don't get it. I don't get that one either.
No, but yeah, and that one is like what I would describe as Pellicore, right? Like that's just like friend of the pod, Liz, folks. Yeah, that song's just Pellicore. Like that's it's just like a 2-minute piece of ambient that clearly is on a quadrillion ambient playlists. It's not tied to an album. It's a single.
Yeah. Sleep. No, it's like sleep, concentration, studying, like all those.
Though I have to say that like I did try. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like put this. I'm gonna see like put it through its paces, and tried to do some work while listening to it. And dark. I don't know if it's his dark ambient or dark ambient generally, but that was a depressing process. like that music sounds like sad nothing. And like I don't understand, like ambient's usually like creepy, calm, nothing, but it was like distinctively sad. And I'm like, boy, like why would you be like, I want to not pay attention to anything, but just want a creeping sense of ennui, like. Some other ones, there's some big ones. I mean, the other thing. Okay, so maybe instead of going track by track, like the category thing. Categories might be a good way to approach this, right? And some of these, are just like songs that had hits in other formats, right? All the records that Clint Eastwood or Natalie Imbruglia sold, Clint Eastwood by the Gorillaz, Torn by Natalie Imbruglia, like none of the CD sales are in this information, right? This isn't a complete picture of their overall musical sales. This is just on Spotify, and clearly like those are songs that are big enough that they just like at a steady clip ever since they've come on Spotify have probably been generating or have been like soundtracked in a dramatic way like recently and just pushed them up. But I imagine all like that, a couple other ones, Day and Night I think is probably like there by Kid Cudi. Is just like people just listen to that. A lot of people listen to some of that always, and it's just gonna like, unless something really changes, I imagine that is gonna also hit 2 million. You know what I mean? That's just gonna be steadily 2 billion. That's just like steadily people are gonna keep listening to Day and Night by Kid Cudi. And then there were a couple that like just surprised me. Both "Gimme More" by Britney Spears and "I Knew You Were Trouble." Period. I did not know that there was a period at the end of that song title by Taylor Swift. I think of as huge hits, and sure, they're huge hits in other moments, like Clint Eastwood, which I don't think was ever a huge hit, but it was like that's a big song, or "Torn." But I just assumed those were like enormous I think of both of those as enormous songs that like I hear played. Maybe I'm just really outing myself as like peak millennial, but like that I hear played at dance parties still, both of those songs. Not like in the club, like so when people are pre-gaming at a house. Like local like
all those pre-games in Maine.
Dude, there's no game. It's all pre-game up here. Yeah, no, and then a couple like a Slipknot song, Romeo Santos.
Yeah. But so I think that like to kind of the reason also why we found this so fascinating is kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, because of the fact that it kind of just completely reorients and alienates and like shrouds like our one's possible understanding of the music industry as it's like been traditionally understood in the last, like, I don't know, 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, no, and I think it's just like it's fascinating. There's so many paths through this, right? Yeah, just that there's so many paths through this and so many plausible ways. Yeah, that it's like there's no one narrative. Like there's not one takeaway. The only way to describe this list is observational. Like, oh, it's interesting that Clint Eastwood is here. Oh, it's interesting that a track from the a big track from the third Slipknot album is here. Oh, it's interesting that like both Bad and Bougie and a recent Bad Bunny song just hit. Like, I'm surprised that Bad and Bougie wasn't here as the biggest Migos song, right? Wasn't here a long time ago. That makes me think that Migos is smaller than they are, maybe. But like Magnolia by Playboi Carti, which is like seems like a pretty normal Playboi Carti song, is here. Though maybe that's outing me as not, you know.
But also like one other way of like observing this kind of stuff is what we do here on this podcast, which is try to like understand to use like a tired metaphor, like how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
And like I feel like in a lot of ways, like I feel like that's kind of the only approach in which like this can be understood.
Yeah.
Of this sort of fractured landscape of music listening through that. It's also in some ways like probably like a lot of it is like passive listening, and because people are being like serviced to stuff like through algorithms and whatnot, that well, as I'm doing right now, essentially like having a critical engagement with this stuff. It's either observational, it's taste, essentially, like, I don't know, Anthony Fontano being like, I don't like it because I don't like it, essentially, or kind of the way that we're doing it, which is kind of actually like at the heart of like this project, and the whole reason why we started it is that we kind of felt like there was like a real lack of engagement outside of a few people who we've all had on the show many of the times. There was like
and God bless the staff of Music Business Worldwide.
God,
Love you guys.
Right, exactly, yeah. Which kind of like slides us into another topic. Many people have been talking about this. Well, many people in our world have been talking about this article that came out by Khalifa Sine in the New Yorker that was essentially asking, how did music critics become so nice? And it kind of like charts, a lot of people were talking about this, and the article kind of
tracks. It's his fault.
yeah, truly, actually. The article kind of tracks music criticism from, I guess, the 70s to the sort of present, and how it's kind of like lacks teeth now. And I guess Sine kind of attributes this loosely in the article. He doesn't really answer the question that well, but like kind of attributes it to like poptimism of the 2010s, and then kind of like treating like a pop culture, including music, as kind of worthy of serious analysis and aesthetic appreciation that was like on par with like, I don't know, rock or jazz criticisms. And then how that kind of like bled into like broader beliefs about like social justice issues, and almost like criticism kind of became more about like what it was commenting on. Is the person good? And then like, isn't this kind of exciting? Yeah, it's interesting, but like I guess like
dangerously almost in the article getting close to critiquing Solange, which is
oh yeah, that was wild, yeah. But I think
tiptoeing right. towards a critique of Solange.
But I think that the interesting thing about the article is that he begins to sort of like, he kind of like suggests this point where it's like pop critics, and in particular like pop music critics, like it feel actually particularly extraneous, considering that, well, for one, if this music is made for the masses, then what are we actually critiquing here? Like, what are we analyzing? And it's like, and then he also kind of makes this point that it's not particularly like a vital to the form itself, like say like literary criticism is, or maybe like a sort of art criticism. And yeah, so this, what ends up happening is that there's sort of this exhaustion of critique that's kind of centered on taste and like whether something is like good or bad, or like, I guess, aligned with like contemporary social justice issues and things like that. And I don't know, I guess like the thing that like I think that one of the reasons why we started this podcast was because of the fact that like what that tends to lack is any kind of like real attention to the sort of historical mechanisms or like economic structures that like not only like got us to this point, but that have been kind of underlining the entire industry in like which we do criticism on. And like, I guess when we started this, we were talking about how we like starting the podcast like 5 years ago, we kind of felt like so much music criticism like really lacked context. And I mean by context, I don't mean things like, you know, I guess I mean like more like socioeconomic or historical context.
Yeah.
Which to us, I think, you know, obviously seems important because I mean, basically, what is the basis or foundation for your critical engagement with this art, other than like formal elements? If you're not doing that, like, right? Like, oh,
or that with a destabilized
production was muddled or whatever. What's that?
Oh, just that I think that like adding on that, like with a destabilized basis for critique, which I still think is and I think there's more to say, and I think my thinking has evolved a little bit about what that originary basis for critique was. But I think that like as the institutional structures and discursive structures that enabled like 90s or 2000s style pop criticism started like to melt away, that once that was no longer self-evidently justified, and given the level of given that so much of artistic choice making, especially, and I wonder if it's chilled out a little bit now, which is another question we could ask. And in the article, there's kind of a question at the end, like, is more, not robust, but more negative criticism coming back? And it's possible that in a music industry that does feel like it's with the kind of the wall of AI slop on the horizon, feels like it's maybe gotten not its feet under it necessarily. Yeah, no, its feet under it. That when we first started writing and thinking about this or talking about this 5 years ago, we were towards the tail end of a period of radical digital reinvention, and it does feel like TikTok's not brand new anymore. All these things aren't brand new anymore. We've talked about like Chapel Roan and Charlie XCX, and the ability of like well executed campaigns to like build new big artists in a different way. And so there's a possibility that, you know, there was, especially when we started, it felt like a lot of economic moves, or rather moves that were tied to specific visions of the music industry, or almost like political economies of the music industry, were being read at a purely aesthetic level, and that they were aesthetic, but it was an aesthetic that also included all of these other elements, and that's something that looks more like, I don't know, like institutional critique was a useful way to try to grapple with like the totality of what artists were doing. That like if you were talking about, you know, the big, so I mean they're still big, but some, you know, Beyonce at that time, and you weren't thinking about how she was moving at an industry level, and how you weren't thinking of her as a businesswoman. You really weren't, and only talking about her at an aesthetic as an aesthetic phenomenon, you were missing a lot of what she was doing, and we felt like there was a whole second half of what she was doing that wasn't getting talked about.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I mean, I think that also having that sort of critical judgment, it also, and I mean, not to put too much emphasis on it, but I mean, it kind of also is a window into how society is structured, and like capitalism, the overarching ways of like capitalism, or like playing roles in our life, and then like your individuality, or like as a subject, like in relation to that in some ways, through that art, and through how that art is being made. I mean, and like all the industry around it as well, and like the businesswoman aspect of it, not instead of just from this purely aesthetic level.
Yeah, and though I do think that, I mean, there's an interesting thing, and I think an interesting question that the article and some of the discussion like hasn't dug into as much, which is, again, like really thinking about what it was that pop critics were doing. Because I'm actually not sure if they were doing what they thought they were doing.
I think I like where this is going. Continue.
Well, so like I think that the idea of the pop critic, right, was like a movie critic, basically, right? Is that there was this kind of audience of listeners, and they wanted people to advise them, right? You wanted to check in and learn about new things, and you had your $10, and you were going to either buy the Carpenter's Greatest Hits Volume 2 or Trout Mask Replicant, and like you turn to Ralph Gleason to figure out which one you should purchase. And like I think that's the fantasy, right? And one of the things that's interesting about the article is it kind of asks, it talks about fandom for a little while, and then kind of asks this question, which has clearly been a major problem for music critics that write or think about stuff that anyone cares about. And that, like, if you come for, by come for, I mean, discuss in any level of negativity, a major star, oftentimes with a huge, especially with or like a vehemently online fan base. Like, I don't think like the Four Tenors fan base was coming after you if you were like, I don't think those tenors are so good. It's like, it's the Barbs. You know what I mean? Which is Nicki Minaj's fans, if somehow you live under like a non-Nicki Minaj related rock. But like, so the thing though is, but then he has this point about like people try to separate fandom from music, but actually like fandom was always a huge part of music. And like the specific parasocial or group socialities created by fandom around the consumption and often idolatry of pop music in a mass media environment, what is like a big part of what drives all of this. And I think he's right about that. But it also raises the question of like, for me, again, thinking back to that, not originary moment, but like the normative vision of what a pop music critic is, which is like this person just saying, yo, you 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb down, that guy. And like, it's always in the imagination, like a guy, unfortunately, which is like fucked up. And it's,
for me, it's always the Muppet guys, which he mentions actually. I was like, oh, cool.
Which
like,
is its own like fucked up kettle of fish. The gender imbalances in music criticism until very, very recently. I mean, even then, clearly not fully addressed.
Right.
But right, and I just wonder if in that originary moment, like music critics, pop music critics, are they ever actually like, they're writing about pop music, but are they ever actually writing for the, like, is the part of pop music they're writing about the same part of it that is actually pop music, right? They're writing about mass culture, but I don't know if they're writing about it like actually in relationship to the mass culture part of mass culture. It's like they're taking mass culture, this large scale social phenomena, shrinking it down to where like it's similar in size and scope and scale to the cult act that you also love, and engaging them in like a very specific set of ways. And so like,
and this kind of almost mimics like a sort of like academic light, like naval critical theory, like
totally. And so I do wonder if like, but like, what's that actually doing? Because I think the easy answer is like nothing. It's an exercise in self-deception. But that's a little bit too, and like that's the mean thing to say about it. It's like it just doesn't matter. No one cares. No, like every critic in the 70s hated Led Zeppelin, and almost everyone has basically just agreed that every single critic in the 70s was wrong about the biggest band of the 70s, basically, or one of them. I've already said that Aerosmith was the biggest band of the 70s, both. So like, you know what I mean. But like, so what if they're like doing something else though? What if this is about the audiences that the critics are writing for, and the way that then those audiences it's important to have like a knowable, understandable version of these kind of mass cultural phenomena to be able to engage with. Like, it's for the audience of people who are reading the pop critics, like, duh. But like, that's a very specific audience that fits into this broader social system. They tend to have more cultural capital. They often tend to I think, like, if we're thinking about like newspaper readers or like Condé Nast readers, tend to have more disposable income. It's like a specific segment, and that like somehow what's happening with criticism is like almost the domestication of true mass culture, which can feel concerning and out of control for a group of elites or wannabe elites, because it really is this like rampant thing out in the world, and it makes it like knowable and graspable, and then like pulls it into these circuits of other types of cultural value.
What would you say to like the sort of Adorno approach, where it'd be kind of like it should be concerning? Because that's not what the optimists are doing. You know, I mean,
maybe.
I don't think these are the kind of people. This is who you're talking about. Like people like basically writing like sort of critical analysis of like culture, I guess, or like pop music or whatever.
Yeah, like Adorno would say it should be concerning, and maybe he's right. Like, right? Like, I don't think it's all bad, but like, it's of concern, and not of concern in like, it's like you should be. It's of concern in a negative way, but it's of concern in that like it's of concern to everyone what is going on in mass culture,
and then that also like forms and that forms society and informs society as well, and people in society like about like their understanding of like, I don't know. I like to take the classic example of our like broader conceptions of heroism is rooted in, as I mentioned in the last episode, is like rooted in like probably a lot of people's that understanding is like rooted in like fucking all the Marvel movies that are ODing on, right? Which feels
dangerous. No, and then there's a question of like,
right. Well, but that almost seems like but I guess the question. Sorry, but I guess the question that Sine is like noting. I mean, I guess it's more specifically about like music, but how there's like a kind of like a lack of negative criticism about that. Where like I think that like you could take this sort of structure in which you're discussing, right, where there's like the person commenting or criticizing or critically analyzing mass culture, right? And they're writing very critically of like, say, like Marvel movies and how it's like informing our understanding of like heroism and patriotism and all that. You know, you can like create like some sort of like critical theory about that, right? But he's saying that actually like it's like in music, it's like it's not doing that. It's actually like just contributing to probably it's like free press essentially.
Yeah, and I mean some of this might be like about like the collapse of like in my head it's not unrelated to like the collapse in support for expertise across American society, right? It's like they're like these positions of power, and then then they had the stability for better and for worse to like exert these judgments, and that as more voices appeared and as the control over discourse declined, like there wasn't that stability, and certainly in terms of poptimism, I feel like that. And probably I think that it's not quite fit. Like there are two intertwined tendencies within poptimism. Like one is there was this destabilization.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a little bit of, there's actually a really good podcast episode about Stephen Sondheim when Sondheim died. The kind of Broadway mainstay of second half of the 20th century musicals. And they had this New York Times podcast, great episode, and they had this like Broadway scholar on because John Perales a little bit, but like most of the podcast guys don't know anything about Broadway. They don't listen to it, they don't like it. And she was basically like, well, the thing is stupid is that everyone's just saying incorrect things about Stephen Sondheim. And they're saying like he transformed the musical and like brought it to the mainstream. And actually it's exactly the opposite in that the musical is mainstream American musical culture until the 50s and early 60s. It still has a lot of cultural cachet, but it's no longer turning right. It's like Sinatra singing songs from musicals in the 40s. The Beatles are not singing songs from musicals in the 60s. And that in the wake of that change, Sondheim comes in and does all this like avant-garde, weird, like modern post-Weber tonality stuff in the musical. And like actually she's like he's more responsible for anyone than killing the musical as a popular like makes incredible art. I love Stephen Sondheim, but like just like it's not pop music anymore. And I do wonder if in a funny way that like poptimism is a similar thing. It's like in the moment that music criticism, because of changing record industry structures, because of changing consumption structures, because of the proliferation of avenues of expression, because of social media and MySpace, and all right at the moment that like the basis for criticism, not to mention like Craigslist, right, like which kills music journalism first. Because of all the free papers.
Why?
All of the papers in America were based on classifieds.
Oh, I see. You mean for like money? Why? Like the streams of income for the papers? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He did. Yeah.
Got to slow down sometimes.
He stole
Mr. American
He feels
historian.
bad about it. He feels bad about it. Craig Newmark. He gives lots of money to good causes because he may have destroyed America by accident. Like not destroyed America, but destroyed American journalism. Local journalism in America. It's not his fault, but like it is. Anyway, the point being that in that moment, I wonder if there's these two tendencies in poptimism that maybe we've smushed together. And one was a lot of brilliant writers took that moment to be like, all of these other things are serious art too.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, you could now hear the voices of all the people, all those Led Zeppelin fans who didn't give a shit about what anyone in Rolling Stone said. All those Emerson, Lake and Palmer fans who didn't give a shit, or Rush fans who didn't give a shit about what anyone at Rolling Stone said ever. Now they all had Twitter, and so you could hear them. And those two things coincided and fed each other. But I sometimes think that there's like there's a funny causality confusion. Like, actually, I don't know if music critics were ever powerful enough, except in very specific spaces with a lot of cultural capital, to like shift discourses about music more generally. It's like I think there was an opening, and then at the same time, Twitter.
Opening for what?
And those two things.
Opening
an opening to write about all these different kinds of music seriously and engage with them seriously.
But the funny thing,
in a way that like abandoned the extremely powerful defensible position of rockism.
It's interesting
for better,
but it's interesting though because they're engaged. Because I think that like the maybe now like the argument for turning towards I guess a more negative criticism, which actually you're beginning to see in other forms. Like there's been a lot of shots fired within the literary world in the last like I guess year, specifically around Lauren Euler. And I'll leave it at that. I'll let you Google it. It's not worth getting getting into, because actually, like in the end, like one of the best parts about that was that guess what? Nobody reads or buys books anyway, so none of this fucking matters. But
people buy books. They buy YA books.
No, maybe the stuff that this is.
They buy.
There was like this funny thing.
No one buys literary.
Came out like in the middle of this like fucking Twitter spat, and like was like, here are the numbers for both of these people who are arguing on their sales, and nobody's selling, which I thought was funny. But you're also seeing in art criticism. Honestly, a money for nothing move. Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. Truly. From a literary agent. Weird. But also, this is happening also in like the art world. You're beginning to see like a sort of return to like a more negative criticism. But like that's the interesting thing about this is that like so maybe so what I was gonna say is that maybe the argument for a more whatever negative criticism, or maybe what we argue for, or not what we argue for, what we're trying to do, which is like not so much a negative criticism, but maybe a more holistic criticism, is instead of like taking this, Marvel movies, let's take an example, as like a serious art, instead it's like taking it seriously as like a form of entertainment in the fabric of society, and like critically analyzing that, like how like this plays a role. There's in how people understand the world and themselves to it, and like it's not just like, and it's shaping like our ideas around things, and like I said earlier, heroism, patriotism, or whatever, and like engaging it with that in a more critical way that way. But then again, it comes like who's reading it? But it doesn't matter.
Well, but I also think there's a couple things there. Like one is when you said like a serious art, and I think maybe that's one of the things that poptimism. If I was gonna and it is.
The name. It's like celebrating this stuff. That's in the name. It's optimism. It's like a celebration optimism. Of this stuff in a sense. Like
Which so in some ways it is interesting that like this discussion does feel like, and this tendency to whatever extent it's real is like a beginning to think seriously about the stakes and the cost of abandoning certain kinds of like negative criticism, and maybe think seriously about poptimism, which I think is probably a good thing, because as we've said, like I think poptimism has had incredible benefits, but I think it's had some real issues. And I think what you said about like Marvel movies is a good way to think about it, right? It's that like there's no art, right? Like art it's a category that exists. It has a history, but it is not a thing that exists outside of its history, right? It's not a universal category. When we say art informed by the traditions of the societies that we were born in. If we were born in different societies, if we were born at a different time in this society, we'd have a different understanding of what art is, right? And so I kind of would argue that like a poptimism that treats this culture, and some of poptimism does, but some I think if it doesn't, that treats all of this culture with the respect it deserves, would attempt to situate it in the practices that produce it, and think about the fact that all of these different kinds of human cultural expression, they're used for different kinds of things. They're different kinds of cultural expressions, but then like in that they can be good or bad, right? And I think that there's a space beyond saying like either, the only way we can judge good or bad is like, is it Bob Dylan? The next level is, everything, and again, these are just totally straw manning here, but like incredible reduction of a lot of capacity is like a celebration of all of these figures on their own terms and for what they did, But again, partially because of like the vast proliferation of different figures, it's very, very, very hard. Like if you're talking about Dolly Parton and Prince and 80s era Rolling Stones and Latin freestyle and Ja Rule and Ashanti and dance hall and techno brega and banda, like it's very difficult to like evaluate all of those individually, and so you kind of go like, oh, isn't this so great? Because it's all great, there's so much great music, but it does mean that you've abandoned like part of this critical practice or part of the promise of criticism, which is say like, how could this like be better? What are the like, you know, to quote Benjamin, like in what ways is this piece of civilization a record of barbarism?
It's 2 shows in a row we've used that word.
Dude, it's a barbaric fall. And in so many ways it is a barbaric fall. Really. So you know what I mean? And so the question is there a way to treat all these different kinds of musics that are produced in all these different kind of ways, treat them on their own terms, but also, and maybe this is totally like idealistic, like, yeah, think about all the ways they're all the specific ways they're fucked up. They're not fucked up in a general slapdash ways. Unto each of them is their own special kind of fucked up. But how they can be better.
But also it's like it's like, I think that also what gets wrapped up in a lot of this that he kind of mentions with like the fandom and stuff like that, and like this is maybe just like a general fall of intellectualism across or whatever, I don't know, but like that, like you could criticize, I don't know, whatever, the new Taylor Swift and not like criticize Taylor Swift. Like, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like what is the phenomenon of this music and her within society that is like perpetuating these ideas around like femininity or relationships with men or like, as you know, identities of women, or like, and like what is that, how's it contributing like socioeconomically and all
and
this
like
stuff?
How can we do better? And I do think that one of the huge blind spots as we move, and this is a theme we haven't talked about forever on this show, but like as we move away from 20th century mass cultural visions of music, right? If we think about art as having a history, music also has a history. The definitions of music have a history. And if in many ways modern, quote, like second half of the 20th century modern popular music, we've talked a lot about, tied to the ideas of the album form, tied to a set of totemic figures who are now passing away, tied to an music industry that has, with a specific set of exploitative, expropriative tendencies, but also like nurturing is too kind a word, but like cultivating, like development, artist development, but like practices.
Like we don't like the big labels, but also I don't want all the music to be generated by like Spotify's AI bands.
Yeah. And just that have their own like habitus, have their own like internal sets of practice within these industries. Look, as we're moving away into a different set of those things, in which music, it does feel like, is a content stream that's more interchangeable with other content streams. It does feel to me like there's a challenge coming. Like poptimism in some ways, like in my mind, in many, is like a wonderful, like, like early Spotify era, end of MP3 blog, early Spotify era way to think about this music culture. But there are these challenges coming and that are here that I feel like we lack a critical vocabulary to even think about. Like, I know we were talking a couple weeks ago about like the temporality, I think, of some of the social media feeds, right? Like if you ask me I'm ashamed to say that I'm a YouTube Shorts guy because it's the only app I can't get off my phone, because sometimes I need to log in via it. But like if you asked me what Shorts I was watching 2 years ago and how they differed from shorts I was watching today, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Like there's it's one thing, like the lack of temporality is just overwhelming. And so there is this question, like more broadly, and music is an important part of this, I think. And as to what you're saying before about the ways in which understanding what music does, it gives us like a manageable chunk of what's happening more generally to our cultures and to our identities and to our individualities and to our agency in contemporary capitalism. But like, it's just like, it's impossible for me to like, I don't even know where to begin to generate a critical function to talk about my YouTube Shorts consumption, which is as much as I watch TV. I don't watch that much of it, but like I would guess I watch between 5 and 22 minutes a day between here and there, kind of poking around in my phone. I think that's probably not, I think a lot of people watch that much. And like just the complete inability to generate any, it doesn't even have to be brilliant criticism. I don't know who I watched.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that like, because like that what you're implying, if I understand, is that criticism actually like gives structure and narrative, quote unquote, to that experience, or that function that we are engaging with, or that, you know, I don't want to call YouTube shows art, but like whatever, that media. Let's say that media. Yeah, and that criticism really kind of gives structure to that, and like attempts to try to understand it. And I mean, we've talked about this before, and I mean, as maybe like a future, I mean, our bandwidth is small, but like a future endeavor that we could like, you know, nail into Money for Nothing is like trying to create some sort of like critical engagement with this kind of stuff. And I think that like,
and it just feels bad for society, and it models bad for society generally, that there's like,
yeah, that's a great point.
It feels like there's very little, and I think it's intentionally designed.
Yeah, 100%.
And part of me, like the tinfoil hat part of me, is like, if they're making it so you can't critique it, why?
Yeah, why exactly? This might be a funny, like this relates. It's like a personal anecdote, but it relates. Like, I actually, you know, from these conversations, I actually one day recently I was paying close attention to like my engagement with Instagram, and like actually kind of like taking notes from it, and then like, and then like stopped to put my phone down, and then I just wrote like 1,800 words about like the last like 5 seconds of like or like last like 35 seconds or a minute of like my time on like Instagram, like what I clicked on, then like the website I went to afterwards, and then like and like followed my steps. And it like doing that alone was just like gave me such a kind of like force like this sort of self-reflection to like how can I even document this, like as like a real-time documentation of like in a way. And it was so like dense and schizophrenic. I'm sorry if that's like inappropriate to use that word, but like it was like, and like schizophrenic, and like and I was like, the fact that like everybody's doing this for like hours on end a day possibly, it was just like insane, totally insane. But I actually think it's good. Yeah, I think it's like this is actually like, there's a weird moment of like Money for Nothing prescriptiveness. I actually suggest people to like go like do that for 30 seconds, like actually like document and like journal or whatever, take notes of like what you did. Open up Instagram, however much time you spend on it, like actually, you know, even like screen record it, and then go back and fucking document it, and you'll be like, wow, like your one's engagement with that, and how much like of a energy, time, attention, whatever it takes up. It was
and you're
disturbing.
Is that you're doing complicated judgments, right?
Yeah,
like
interesting. Yeah,
it's like you're doing like Kantian shit, right? Like you're judging, you're connecting. You're making decisions based on like who you are and how you think the world should be.
To like or not to like.
It's an I. It's like an I. And right, it's a pure I, right? It's an I interacting with the world in the purest way via these instruments. And it's just like we've got no, and I don't mean in like a digital detox. I just like in a purely like, could you be using Instagram better? Like
no, completely. I mean, I think it's like a. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, more power to the people who are like don't have it and are like digitally have cleansed themselves and like whatever, but I mean, truly, like, more power to them. But in reality, the masses are not going to be doing what these people are doing at any kind of large scale. And so if you are someone who is concerned about the things that we're talking about and like listening to this podcast, then like, yeah, like, I mean, it is an interesting question to bring up. And I mean, I don't know, have you ever done stuff like that? I like I've done weird stuff. Like, I have like like an alternate Instagram that is just like follows only art stuff. So the feed is purely just galleries and artists and everything. And I've also done something where like I've taken my iPhone, and if you look at like the way here, I can show you actually, because we're like on look at how
the like scattered
yeah right. We're like I have like 12 apps actually like on my whatever you call that desktop. I don't even know what to call the phone desktop, and they're like not in like a line, they're scattered and on different pages to like kind of like scramble my like touch thing. I mean, maybe it's all helpless. Maybe it's all just a helpless effort. But I mean, it isn't, like at least there's like a sort of like self-awareness happening of like what's going on here,
And I think the other thing is just like the importance of not of being
complacent,
of knowing what we're, just like of knowing what we're not doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like if we've decided as a society that we're just gonna not generate a critical apparatus for the primary forms of the primary pathways of mass media cultural consumption, like, that's a choice. But I don't know if we've made that choice. I think it just sort of happened, and it's very hard to track. So I do think that some of this like return to criticism, and especially if there's a standpoint from which you could say this gets in tricky territory, but like, and so there's no risk-free way to say it, which actually might be a good thing, right? Like, post the moral absolutes, post like there's a way to do anything without potentially like incurring cultural risk. Like, probably we should all be like, there's no purity, so like figure out how to like risk what you can, and but like in doing so, then say like, is there a way to say like, oh, I think this could be better? And I don't think that has to be like a fascist reductive vision of the world. Like, I do think that there has to be a way to both be open to multiplicity and to demand better.
I think also it doesn't have to be like then like put into like what we've seen a lot, like put into like the blue sky like form, where it's like this, we just need to make another platform. Like, or like maybe we do make another platform, but like it's just, there's like alternative, there's like a limit. There's something also about the way that we interact with this stuff that actually like limits our imagination of like what is possible, and I think that kind of plays a role into that. And it doesn't mean that like we all return to the fields in our socialist utopia or something, but yeah, like, is there like just like a better way to engage with this stuff? I mean, I guess, well,
yeah, dude,
we're going.
It was called Vine.
Yeah, truly. But like to actually, like, I know we've gone long on this, but like just like from a historical standpoint, I mean, like, has there been in a situation where like a new form of technology related to the media has come out, and there's like, it's in one way, and there's a sort of like this push towards making it another way that's more, I mean, it's like, is this kind of like, I don't know, like avant-garde film in the 70s or something like?
Or, I mean, I think a lot about radio. In that, I mean, again, look, and it didn't lose this possibility entirely, right? And one could say that it was replaced by television, which had its own complicated set of practices. There's historical nuance here. But, like, radio emerges in the 1920s. It corresponds closely with the rise of fascism, or at least cults of personality, pretty much everywhere. Fascism in Germany, but like, let's be real here. Roosevelt had 4 terms. That's a lot of terms of president. That's 16 years. That's the closest, like, that's a lot of precedent, right? And a big part of that was that the ability to generate these intense parasocial relationships with people. And clearly radio didn't lose that power, right? Talk radio, the rise of conservative right-wing radio, podcasts and people's relationship to podcasters. There's something magic about radio and listening to sounds in your ears and the relationships that you get with people whose voices you listen to. But like, there was a 40-year period of time where like radio people had like learned a little bit that like you can't believe anything the radio man says, like right?
And
like,
there was this like independent radio and college radio and like other like
there's independent radio and college radio. You get new structures of mass media. So when TV replaces radio in the 50s and 60s, like there's a different set of social structures around television and the use of television than there was, and I think intentionally cultivated. But also I do think that people just got better at mass media, that there hadn't been any besides reading, right? There hadn't been any sensorial mass media. Then there was. Everyone like didn't know how to deal with it at all for like 20 years. And then they like kind of figured out how to deal with it as people a little bit. And so I do think, I mean, I don't know if that answers it exactly, but I do think that there can be processes of being overwhelmed for like quite some time. I would say 2 decades maybe. And then pulling back. And it's not like it stopped being powerful. Like, you can go back to our episode with Brian Ward from very early on in the show about the importance of black and white radio stations in the South and the fall of Jim Crow segregation. Right? Radio clearly still mattered. But not in the same way it did when it was at its most destructive and influential, I would say.
And it kind of feels like maybe, well, who knows, but it feels pretty, what we're experiencing now and talking about feels pretty influential and destructive, but maybe it could get even more so.
Well, I think with that, Saxon, I'm going to wish you and everyone else a happy new year. May the coming year be less full of fascism and genocide than this past one was. Money for nothing.
Agree. Okay, well, I guess we'll tie a bow on that one. Do you say happy Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah.
Anyways, if you're out there celebrating, happy new year. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Please rate and review us, and also follow our Substack, moneyfornothing.substack.com. That's the number 4. Money by Bird Language. Money. Music by Bird Language. And we'll talk to you soon.